She don't play for the Fever yet. She want to get down with the get down. She see what's going on.
In the modern landscape of professional sports, there are two distinct types of players who attempt to attach themselves to a generational, once-in-a-lifetime superstar. The first type is the strategic veteran, the enforcer. The player who recognizes a massive opportunity to win a championship and intentionally sacrifices their own individual statistics to protect the franchise cornerstone at all costs. But then there's the second type, the parasite, the clout chaser. The player who looks at the exploding television ratings, the sold-out arenas, and the viral social media algorithms and attempts to aggressively hijack the superstar's ecosystem strictly for their own personal financial gain and brand elevation. Right now, the Indiana Fever are sitting at the absolute epicenter of the global sports economy. Caitlin Clark has created a financial tidal wave so massive that every single free agent, role player, and bench warmer in the WNBA is desperately trying to figure out a way to put on an Indiana Fever jersey. But as the Fever front office attempts to build a legitimate long-term championship roster around Clark, a highly suspicious, potentially dangerous trend is beginning to emerge on social media. We're seeing players actively campaigning to join the team, leaking footage of themselves wearing Fever merchandise, and begging to get into the Caitlin Clark business. And while the Fever desperately need defensive reinforcements, they have to be incredibly careful. Because if you let the wrong type of ego into that locker room, you don't just ruin the chemistry, you destroy the entire multi-million-dollar offensive system. Furthermore, this entire roster-building process is happening under the terrifying apocalyptic shadow of a looming league-wide lockout, where the most powerful man in basketball, NBA Commissioner Adam Silver, is quietly pulling the strings in the dark. Welcome to the breakdown. Let's expose the true intentions of the WNBA free agency market and the absolute reality of the collective bargaining agreement. To understand the absolute circus that the Indiana Fever free agency period has become, we have to look at a highly revealing piece of footage that recently surfaced online. We're seeing a prominent, aggressive 6'3" defensive forward who has previously played for organizations like the Valkyries actively broadcasting her desire to join the Indiana Fever. This is not a formal trade request. This is not a subtle message from an agent. This is a player visibly wearing unearned team merchandise in public to manufacture a media narrative. Look closely at what happens when the gravitational pull of the Caitlin Clark economy becomes completely irresistible to the rest of the league.
Dominoes, I don't know what it is. Scrabble, I don't know what it is. But what she got on? She got on Indiana Fever merch. She don't play for the Fever yet. She want to get down with the get down. She see what's going on. And
she wants to get down with the get down. She sees exactly what's going on. And on a purely basketball tactical level, this is exactly the type of physical profile the Indiana Fever desperately need to acquire. At 6'3" and 185 pounds, this is a player who provides athletic rim protection, switchability on the perimeter, and the physical toughness to set brutal screens. She's a defensive enforcer. If you look at the history of basketball dynasties, the legendary offensive superstars always needed an enforcer. Michael Jordan needed Charles Oakley and Dennis Rodman to absorb the physical punishment. Stephen Curry needed Draymond Green to set the moving screens and handle the defensive communication. Caitlin Clark, who was physically battered, bruised, and aggressively targeted during her entire rookie season by jealous veterans, desperately needs a 6'3" bodyguard who is willing to step onto the floor, commit hard fouls, and physically intimidate anyone who tries to cheap shot the franchise point guard. But physical attributes are only 10% of the equation. The other 90% is psychological alignment. The Indiana Fever front office cannot just look at a player's height and defensive rebounding numbers. They have to run a brutal, uncompromising psychological background check to determine exactly why that player wants to come to Indianapolis. Are they coming to set screens, grab rebounds, and protect Caitlin Clark? Or are they coming to steal her touches, elevate their own brand, and demand a larger piece of the spotlight? Because the WNBA has already provided a massive, glaring cautionary tale of what happens when you let a delusional, ego-driven player try to hijack a superstar's ecosystem. We've seen the absolute disaster of players joining high-profile teams and immediately attempting to establish themselves as the alpha. Listen to the unfiltered truth about the absolute worst-case scenario the Fever must avoid at all costs.
Here and robbing us. We don't need no more of that. Okay? We damn sure don't need no more Natasha Howard's coming over here talking about winning MVP, trying to bring the ball up the court and not giving it to Caitlin Clark.
We do not need another Natasha Howard situation. We do not need a player coming into the most efficient, high-paced offense in the league, demanding to bring the ball up the court, talking about winning the most valuable player award, and refusing to initiate the offense through Caitlin Clark. When a player who is historically a secondary option suddenly decides they want to be the hero on national television, the entire offensive geometry collapses. The spacing disappears. The transition game slows to a halt. The incredibly lucrative, fast-paced Caitlin Clark system is replaced by inefficient, stagnant, isolation-heavy basketball that inevitably leads to losing streaks and locker room mutinies. If a player wants to join the Indiana Fever, they must sign a metaphorical blood oath before they ever step foot in the facility. They must accept without a single shred of hesitation that this is Caitlin Clark's universe. If they're willing to play the role of Sophie Cunningham, a player who capitalized on the massive viewership but did so by playing the game the right way, shooting open threes, and physically defending her superstar teammate from cheap shots, then the Fever should welcome them with an open checkbook. But the second a free agent starts whispering about their own individual usage rate or their most valuable player aspirations, the front office must permanently banish them from the building. You do not invite a parasite into a healthy ecosystem. But building the perfect, mathematically optimized roster around Caitlin Clark is completely irrelevant if the league ceases to exist. And that brings us to the terrifying multi-billion-dollar elephant in the room that the players' union is desperately trying to ignore, the impending collective bargaining agreement lockout. While players are wearing Indiana Fever merchandise on social media and begging for a roster spot, the entire foundation of the WNBA is currently crumbling. The Players Association is demanding massive, historically unprecedented revenue-sharing percentages. They want a cut of the gross revenue. They want guaranteed housing. They want multi-million-dollar salary caps. And they're operating under the completely delusional assumption that they hold the leverage because television ratings spiked for one single season. But they don't hold the leverage. The owners hold the leverage. And more importantly, the National Basketball Association holds the ultimate, undeniable kill switch. Recently, NBA Commissioner Adam Silver finally broke his silence regarding the WNBA negotiations. The Players' Union was hoping Silver would step in, act as a savior, and force the billionaire WNBA owners to open their wallets and pay the players what they're demanding. But Adam Silver is a ruthless, highly calculated corporate executive who oversees a multi-billion-dollar global empire. He doesn't operate on emotion. He operates on spreadsheets. And his recent comments sent a chilling, terrifying message to the WNBA Players Union.
Interesting perspectives on the current state of the CBA negotiations. He thinks it's, unfortunate, as he said, where they are right now. He thinks they're getting close to the 11th hour. He has not yet set a drop dead deadline date, and he said he's not ready.
He thinks they're getting close to the 11th hour, but he hasn't set a drop dead deadline. Let's translate that corporate executive speak into unvarnished, brutal reality. Adam Silver is sitting back watching the WNBA Players Union make completely unreasonable, financially suicidal demands, and he's choosing to do absolutely nothing to help them. He's not setting a deadline because he doesn't care if the deadline passes. He's not rushing to the rescue because the NBA has absolutely no intention of subsidizing a $460 million loss just to appease a union that refuses to understand basic corporate accounting. The media and the players are fundamentally confused about the power dynamics at play here. They actually believe the WNBA operates as an independent, self-sustaining financial entity that can negotiate its own terms. They have completely lost the plot. Listen to the brutal, undeniable truth about who actually controls the fate of women's professional basketball.
People out here are a little bit confused or have lost the plot that the NBA really does call a lot of the shots, and Adam Silver could have and should have been more prevalent and vocal of a role than he has been.
The NBA really does call a lot of the shots. Adam Silver has way more power than people give him credit for. The reality of the situation is that the WNBA is and always has been a heavily subsidized subsidiary of the National Basketball Association. The NBA owns 50% of the league. The NBA infrastructure negotiates the television deals. The NBA infrastructure provides the operational blueprint. Adam Silver is completely involved in these negotiations behind the scenes, and his message has been consistently, aggressively clear. The revenue sharing demands that the players' union is pushing for are completely dead on arrival. The NBA has already informed the WNBA players months in advance that a 50-50 or even a 30% split of gross revenue is mathematically impossible for a league that operates on razor-thin and historically negative profit margins. Silver has a multi-billion-dollar NBA television rights deal to manage. He has international expansion to worry about. He has his own labor relations to maintain. He doesn't have the time, the patience, or the financial incentive to play games with a WNBA union that is trying to extort the owners based on the one-year economic anomaly of Caitlin Clark's rookie season. Silver is effectively letting the players' union walk themselves directly off a cliff. He knows that if he doesn't intervene, the billionaire owners will simply lock the arena doors, cancel the 2025 season, and let the players bleed out financially until they're forced to come crawling back to the negotiating table to accept a highly restricted, heavily owner-favored deal. The players are playing a game of poker with a pair of twos, and they're trying to bluff the house. But Adam Silver is the casino manager, and he knows exactly what cards are in the deck. The irony of this entire situation is absolutely staggering. You have dozens of players actively clout chasing on social media, wearing Indiana Fever merchandise and desperately trying to secure a contract to play alongside Caitlin Clark so they can secure their own financial future. Yet simultaneously, the exact same players' union is stubbornly pushing the entire league toward a catastrophic labor lockout that will completely destroy the greatest economic opportunity the sport has ever seen. They want the Caitlin Clark money, but they refuse to understand the corporate mechanics required to actually sustain it. If the players' union doesn't immediately wake up, fire their radical advisors, and accept the reality that Adam Silver is not going to bail them out, there will be no Indiana Fever roster to join. There will be no primetime television slots. There will be no sold-out arenas. The players who are begging to join Caitlin Clark need to realize that their real fight is not on the basketball court. Their real fight is in the boardroom. And right now, they're losing violently to a group of billionaires who have an infinite amount of time and money to wait them out. What's your unvarnished opinion on this massive, multi-layered disaster? Do you think the Indiana Fever should sign these defensive enforcers who are actively clout chasing on social media, or is the risk of ruining the locker room chemistry too high? And more importantly, do you think Adam Silver is intentionally letting the WNBA Players Union destroy themselves to prove a point about leverage and corporate power? Drop your highly analytical, completely unfiltered thoughts in the comments section below. If you want the brutal, uncompromising truth about the real business, the real strategy, and the real financial politics of professional sports, hit that subscribe button, brutally smash the like button, and turn on the bell notification so you never miss a deep dive. We don't do mainstream media fluff on this channel. We follow the leverage, we expose the accounting, and we reveal the reality behind the press conferences. I'll see you all in the next breakdown.